Our top focus at this hour, Ukraine has inched closer to its European Union dream as the bloc's ministers have backed its membership bid ahead of crucial summit in Brussels tomorrow. The European Union ministers supported the decision to grant candidate status to the war-torn nation. The bloc's executive arm had proposed taking first symbolic step to put Ukraine on the years-long path towards EU membership last week, in a strong sign of support for the country which is currently witnessing continued Russian invasion.
We are expanding a circle of those who are supporting Ukraine's candidacy and adding certainty that a decision on Friday will be a positive one. I will do everything for a historic decision of the European Union to be approved. It is important for us.
The French minister, Clément Beaune, whose country holds the EU's rotating presidency, said that there had been a total consensus on taking this historic step. His remarks came after a meeting with his counterparts, while Luxembourg's foreign minister said that there is not a single country which has problems with the proposal. It has now come down to EU leaders meeting starting tomorrow in Brussels, where they can sign off on the move. The ministers are expected to agree to Ukraine and neighbouring Moldova's bid to join the list of candidates pushing for membership. The bloc is all set to impose conditions, however, on Ukraine and Moldova over judicial reform and tackling corruption before they could move on to the formal entry negotiations. It would then take years, if not decades, of painstaking evaluation before Ukraine would get close to becoming an actual member. All this comes after leaders of heavyweights, France, Germany, Italy and Romania, threw their support behind this move during their latest visit to Kiev last week, while more sceptical nations such as the Netherlands and Denmark have sought reform while supporting the move. And for more details, joining us now is our correspondent Rosie Burchard, who joins us live from Brussels. Rosie, thanks for joining us. Now, Ukraine seems to have inched closer to its dream of joining the bloc. The ministers have thrown their support behind Ukraine, especially in this moment of crisis. But this actual membership could take years, if not decades. Will it be too late by then?
Well, that's very much the question on Ukrainian officials' mind. Now, this first recommendation to grant Ukraine candidate status came from the European Commission that's headquartered here in this building behind me. The recommendation is now being passed over to EU leaders for their final verdict. They are meeting in Brussels on Thursday and Friday for 2 days of talks, and they'll be deliberating there on whether or not to give the green light for this candidate status to Ukraine. They're expected to announce their formal backing. While there has been some hesitation expressed in the past from countries you mentioned, Priyanka, including Denmark, Portugal, the Netherlands, the likelihood, based on what I'm hearing now in Brussels, is that these 27 leaders are going to give their formal backing for a candidate status. But candidate status does not equal membership, and you're quite right to note that this would be the first step along a very long and widening path to finally joining the European Union. Just to give you some perspective here, North Macedonia has been a candidate country since 2005, so this can indeed be a very long and winding road. However, Kiev very aware of those caveats, and it's still something Ukraine has been calling for. Ukraine wants a clearer path toward European membership, and even a small step toward a seat at this EU table will be seen by many as a big victory in Ukraine.
Absolutely, Rosie. But another bigger question that is now arising is, when the ministers sit down to talk in Brussels, how will Russia react? Will there be some retaliation from Russia?
That will very much be on their minds. However, it's important to note that Russia has in the past said that it has no problem with Ukraine integrating into the European Union because the EU is not a military alliance. Now, that is entirely different to its stance on Ukraine trying to join NATO. That is another organisation headquartered here in Brussels, across town. NATO is a military alliance, a defensive alliance, and you'll recall that when Russia was building up troops along the borders with Ukraine before that launched into a full-scale invasion, one of Russia's demands was that Ukraine effectively be barred from ever joining NATO. That's something NATO allies said they would never agree to. However, Ukraine is not on any sort of clear path toward NATO membership. That's not really up for discussion at this time. This path toward European Union membership unlikely to spark such an important reaction from Moscow. However, Russian officials have said they're watching this carefully, not least because the European Union, very much in response to the outbreak of full-scale war in the continent again, are now looking at deepening cooperation on defence within the European Union, among these 27 member states, and in cooperation with NATO. So the fact that the EU is becoming closer when it comes to defence on these topics, when it comes to security, that's something that Russia says it is watching very carefully. So EU leaders will be looking carefully to see what reaction might come out of Moscow. However, not nearly such a severe reaction as is expected here as if it were compared to if Ukraine trying to join NATO, that military defensive alliance headquartered here in Brussels across town.
Right, Rosie, thanks so much for all those inputs. Thanks for joining us on WION at this hour. WION World is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news updates on the move.